Welcome, everyone, to the Veganpreneur REVOLUTIon Podcast. I'm your host, Phelan Hawkins, and we're doing a special series on the podcast this week that is actually all about the Georgia VegFest Expo and their speakers and presenters, and of course, a little bit about the expo itself. But I would love for you right now to know who it is that I'm speaking to, what we're going to talk about, and just everything about this young lady is amazing. You'll hear some of her story and her background and what she's doing now. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and get right to it. Leah Garces, how are you and welcome?
Thank you so much, Phelan. I'm so excited. I'm excited about VegFest. I can't wait.
Well, I'm excited too because we have such a diverse company of presenters this year that it's amazing to me. And I want to tell our audience a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into some conversation because I want them to know that you are CEO and president of Mercy for Animals. And you're a prominent advocate for animal rights and sustainable food systems with over 25 years of leadership experience. You've founded Transfarmation Project and you've launched Compassion in World Farming in the US. And you're a recent author, but you're a global speaker and you've been featured at forums like TED, the World Health Organization, and you've been recognized in Vox's Future Project 50 list. You've even worked extensively with corporations and communities and governments to transform food systems. Really interested in hearing some of that and focusing particularly on reducing the suffering of animals in the food system. We often talk about ways that we can make that happen, but you've actually increased the adoption of plant-based diets and transitioning farmers away from the industrial animal agriculture towards sustainable alternatives while balancing your work and family. You live locally here in the Decatur area, really close to me. And I want our audience to also know a little bit about your book. It's not just a book to be read. And from what I understand, it's a journey into the inspiring realities of farmers and communities courageously forging new paths away from industrial agriculture toward a kinder, plant-based, more compassionate world. I'm so excited to have you here with us today, Leah. Welcome.
That was quite the intro. Thank you. I don't know what else I'm going to talk about now. It's great.
Well, there's details in here that we're going to get to. But I'm excited about having this conversation. A lot of the conversations that I'm in are about the food aspects in
Mhm.
general, the health aspects.
Right.
And factory farming is a huge issue. I recognize it. And I think about the years that I slept through this knowledge and understanding, and how many people still are denying it, sleeping through it, or they just have their blinders on, don't want to hear about it, don't nothing to do with it, and that's not helping the situation. So hopefully our conversation today will help ease people's minds who are on the fence about why this aspect of compassion needs to extend to these animals that we've traditionally been putting on, dead pieces of them on our plates. So, how did this start for you, Leah? Where did it all begin?
Very young, actually, Phelan. I found my passion for animals at a young age, like many folks, through those animals that were around me. In my case, I was living in Florida, and in my backyard, there were ducks, wild ducks. And these ducks would lay eggs. The mother ducks would come into my mother's like prized flower beds and lay their eggs right next to our screened in porch. And my brother, sister, and I would lay on our bellies and we'd watch this whole family unfold. And throughout my childhood, I would watch these sagas happen right in front of me, where there would be babies born, babies go out on their first, mission into the canal. And in my mind, there was no doubt at all that these were sentient beings. They had joy, they had battles, they had jealousy. They were just like us. There was no difference. So when I was about 15, and I happened to, on PBS, find a documentary that was talking about where our meat came from, I was so upset that I had never thought about the chicken on my plate or the beef on my plate or the veal even at the time. And I almost overnight went vegetarian and then later vegan. And I think that that is a very important starting point to remember. Most people don't start off with this awareness. Most people, are the system is intentionally out of sight and out of mind. You're meant to stay in the dark, and no one starts with that knowledge the way the world is set up. And unless you're my kids are raised vegan, so they have that privilege. But I think it was a journey for me, continues to be a journey on how we make change, how we reach people, how do we create a more compassionate world for animals, how do we create a kinder world for animals. But in a nutshell, it's a love of ducks. I started with a love of ducks.
That's a beautiful story. And you're right. We all start somewhere, and it is the journey. That's the beautiful part of our individual lives as vegans that we can look back on, including those who are born vegan,
Hmm.
because they've got friends who are non-vegans, they've got
Absolutely.
relatives who are non-vegans, and to watch some of those lives
Yeah.
unfold into healthier, more compassionate lives themselves is a wonder to be seen.
Yeah.
Um, but so on your journey, you recognize these animal families. You're looking at the day that you decided there was a bigger part for you to play.
Mm.
Tell us about that. How did
Yeah.
that unfold?
Yeah, actually, I was studying at the University of Florida and I was doing a zoology degree because I thought I'm going to study animals. I don't know how to help them, but I want to help animals. Um, and and I said, "Oh, I guess you're a vet. You should become a vet if you want to help animals." I didn't know that there was a world of activism and being a change agent and being someone who believes in changing big institutions. I didn't know that was a job. And I talked to my mentor, and he said, "I don't think you want to be a vet. You strike me as someone who wants to get to the root of the problem. Vets fix animals once they're broken already. I think you want to keep studying and searching." And that was one of the single, like, pivotal moments in my life where I didn't become a vet. And instead, I went to London to do a master's degree in what was then called environment development. It was sort of sustainable development. And I was thinking about how agriculture affected wildlife. And while I was in England, I discovered there was a history and a huge profession around protecting animals because they are about 20, 30 years ahead of us on this. And there were groups like Compassionate World Farming and the RSPCA and all these groups that had existed already for decades with CEOs and activists and campaigners and lawyers that were all fighting for animals. And so basically, as soon as I finished my master's degree, I got a job at Compassionate World Farming and I started working on ending factory farming. And that was when I was 22 and I'm 47. So that's 25 years ago. And I haven't looked back.
Sweet. And then, continuing this journey, you came out of that. What led you to come out of that and go to the next thing that
Yeah.
was animal focused?
Yeah. So Um, I was working for a time at a group that worked on all animals, every animal from stray dogs to horses used in carriages in like Colombia or stray dogs in India, bear farming for medicine in China and Vietnam, and factory farming, dolphinariums, all the ways that humans cause suffering to animals. And as I was doing that, I was developing my skills and my campaigning career, and I had my first son. And when I had my first son, the idea of time became so precious that I only wanted to focus on something that really, really core mattered to me, really the most important thing, not all the things, the most important thing. And when I looked at all the animals that were being affected, farmed animals stood out to me as the one where they're suffering the most, but there's so much change that we can make because we're individually involved. Individually, we choose 3 times a day what to eat. And therefore, the capacity for change is enormous at the individual and the system level. And around the time of my second son then being born, I said, I've got to focus. I only want to work on farmed animals. And at that time, we were moving back to the US. We had been 10 years in London, my husband and I. I was pregnant with my second, and I proposed opening up the Compassion in World Farming US office. And they didn't have a branch there. And I said, I'll do it. I'll do it for close to nothing. They gave me 2 days' pay and a laptop. And I built the office. And that was a 7-year process. I built the office to 20 people. And from there, because of the kind of reputation for change I was making and the work I started to do with farmers and the media work that I was able to achieve in the United States, I got recruited by Mercy for Animals to be their CEO. And that's where I've been the last 7 years.
Sweet. So, okay, give us a little history about Mercy for Animals then.
So, Mercy for Animals is an amazing organization. It is 25 years old now. It was started by a teenager, Milo Runkle, when he was 15 years old as a high school club. He stood up to the way pigs were being treated in a class experiment, a class dissection. Thought it was cruel, didn't want anything to do with it. And that kind of grew from like a high school club to an organization where he was. And this was in rural Ohio. And from there, he started to acquire media. He started to acquire attention. They were doing a lot of exposés, and eventually grew the organization and moved it to LA, where we had a lot of celebrity interest. And that really helped build our profile. We continue to do undercover investigations. That's probably the core work we do, the thing we're known best for, where we go into factory farms and we shine a light on the darkness within there. And we bring that truth to companies and say, this has to change. And we bring it to the media and to the public to say, help us end this terrible system. We also work globally now. We have offices in Mexico, in Brazil, in India, Malaysia, Canada, and the United States. And we have about 170 team members across those countries. And we continue to grow and fight for our mission, which is to create a kinder world for animals.
That is beautiful. Beautiful. And tell us a little bit about, other than going into factory farms and shining the light the way that you do, which is definitely necessary. It's needed, and more of that is needed. Are there other ways that you actually do your outreach and impact?
Yes. So one of the big things we believe in is institutional change. So what does that mean? It's affecting policies at the government and the company level. Because if you think about it, if you can get one McDonald's to end cages for hens, you're affecting tens of millions of animals, all in one agreement. Or the state of California with Prop 12 agreed to get rid of all cages and crates for hens and pigs and calves and the sale of products. So you affect millions of animals in that one agreement. So we're really dealing with a David and Goliath situation here. We're dealing with tens of billions of dollars against our couple of $1 million to fight factory farming. And we have to be ruthlessly strategic. And so the ruthless strategy is to go after corporations and governments and get them to agree to policies that reduce the suffering of animals that are trapped in the system. So that's our animal welfare side of things. Simultaneously, we're working towards a plant-based world. So how we do that and where we've seen success is getting city-based or county-based agreements through the government saying we will agree to a vegan by default policy. So, for example, last year we got LA County, which is the largest county in all of the United States. It has more people in it than 40 plus of the states. It is massive. That county agreed to a vegan by default policy, meaning they're trying to reduce their emissions. And to do that, they have to reduce meat production and consumption. And it means that in their hospitals, at their events, at the parks and recs, they are first offering vegan offerings. You can add in the meat, you can add in the things, but it's not there as a default. And studies have shown that when you do that, there's an 80% reduction in choice when you do that, because people generally are going along with the defaults. Generally, they prefer to go with the flow. And so it's really effective, and it's proven effective to create policies with governments based mostly on health and environment. But of course, our core reason is ethical for animals. And we also try to do that with big companies where we're increasing vegan options. So, for example, we just worked with Starbucks, and you might have noticed that all of the plant-based milks no longer have a surcharge at Starbucks, and many of the big companies no longer charge you for your oat milk extra. It used to be a plus dollar charge for that. And we removed that barrier. We worked with them to remove that barrier. And that was based on both, we based it on inequity. So many people are lactose intolerant that we argued that that was a health reason, that you're being inequitable to folks who are lactose intolerant. And that's a lot of the population. And we work with companies. We also work with Starbucks to get the falafel added. There's a falafel. You can now have there's a plant-based option now available as a lunch, and there wasn't available. So we work with companies to normalize plant-based offerings, to reduce barriers of plant-based offerings. But as a whole, it's really a strategy to get the most impact for animals, working with the biggest institutions possible.
Beautiful. Now, I have a question for you that may be an item to hopefully, if it's something that you're not focused on, to take back to the board to draw some attention to, because one of the strategic opportunities that I'm working with is a an initiative called More Plants on Plates,
Mhm.
that's really geared to plant-based meal options in schools
Love it.
for lunches, and optionally growing to being the breakfast meal as well, because as we know, some children, school meals are almost the only meal they get in
Yes.
a day. And so have you thought about working with, and one of the bigger institutions, again, is schools, like hospitals, schools, um, per capita, there are, I think it's like 1/4 of the population's children, school age children, and we're talking K through 12. And the state of Illinois has passed a law that every school in the state of Illinois must offer a family, a child, plant-based options. They have to opt in, but they have to offer it. And so this organization's been working with schools in Illinois to help them to revamp their menu, to bring in the vendor and the sources for them to make this offering. There's a couple of school districts in the state of New York who have been doing this for years, starting with like Meatless Monday.
Mhm.
And over the years, they have amassed reductions in their food budget because of offering the plant-based options. And so, have you guys thought about moving in that direction to impact schools? And if so, what have you been able to do so far?
Yeah, the place where we have the most success with that is in Brazil, believe it or not. We have a team that works on that kind of policy. We work within a city. We get the city to agree to change the options at school to a meatless Monday. We work with the chefs. We work with the nutritionists in the district. And we've worked with some of the biggest cities in Brazil to do that. and achieve change at the level where you're talking about, where it's not just for the animals. Of course, it's for the animals, but in Brazil, for example, we're talking about nutrition and the environment, where the Amazon is being completely
Decimated.
deforested in
Mm.
for cattle farming. So this is right in front of them. We're talking about schools in the backyard of the Amazon that's being devastated. So we have a really strong policy in Brazil. In the United States, there's a couple of groups doing that. The United States has is harder sometimes because the federal government mandates the diet, as you probably know, for the entire country. Whereas in Brazil, we can go city by city and make changes. But it's a great idea. I do believe some cities are really ripe for this change. I will say Atlanta is one of them, and I do
Mhm.
hope to work in Atlanta for these sorts of changes. Those offerings are critical. I mean, my kids are all vegan. I have to make lunch for them every day. And if they don't, all they can eat is a really horrible crustable. And uncrustable, I think it's called. It's just like this PB&J, that's it. And because my kids are all athletes, they have to eat like four of them to get enough calories.
Yes.
So it's a great idea, and I do hope to lean into that. And there are great groups working on that as well, as you mentioned, in the United States.
Awesome. Maybe there's something we can do together with
Yes,
that.
yes.
Love that. So let's talk a little bit about, the animals. A lot of times, and I shudder to think what was going on in my head all the decades that I felt like, it didn't matter, or, it's like you said, they're hiding it. They're propagandizing the other side of it, so you don't want to look at it. And it is typically for, I'll say the majority of people actually make the shift to vegetarian or veganism because of health reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, how is it that you are finding most people looking at the animals being their reason for converting? Is it typically children?
Yeah, it is all over the map, but it is our supporters are generally more in midlife women, actually, who are having, these epiphanies. They're often head of households in terms of purchasing options for their homes. Um, Youth are very important and a target audience for us, 18 to 30. When I say youth, that's what I mean. Um, that in high school is really challenging. The high school years, there's a lot of not wanting to stand out, trying to just get by. So around college age is another kind of target area, but the majority of our supporters for the animals are more in the kind of 30 to 50 women, something like that. Um, People reach us all kinds of ways, and we welcome them wherever they are in their journey, whether they're just reducing a meal a day or a meal a week, or they're vegetarian, or they're vegan, or they're on and off. Wherever you are, we try to nudge and not judge. That's a big theme
Hmm.
for us.
Hmm.
That every bite you take that is not with animals, not supporting factory farming, not supporting a system of oppression, and I mean oppression not just for animals, but for people, this is helping. And that's the beauty of this work is it's not an all or nothing. Every bite you take that's different, literally one bite makes a difference. And that's where else can you say that in systems of oppression? This is a very feasible like value you can lean into and make choices that will help the system reduce suffering in the world in a measurable way.
I love it. And, you know, the journey, the plant forward journey can take numerous um directions
Yeah.
to get to veganism. Many actually, like you said, go to vegetarianism.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, what is it that you think about vegetarianism that gives people a sense of comfort and sustainability for that period of life that they've chosen that because they're still eating fish, they're still eating dairy. What makes that a safer space for a time?
Yeah, it's a great transition place. It's a great place to experiment with the social changes, especially. What we find is the most challenging thing is not finding delicious food or figuring out what to cook. It's actually the social transition with dinner parties and restaurant navigations with people who are not. And so it gives you a moment to think about that. And vegetarian is really, there's lots of vegetarian options. Like there's lots of normalized vegetarian meals, like an eggplant parmesan or something, that are not, nobody's going to bat an eye. So it makes it a very easy and safe transition place. And it is valuable to animals. Not eating chickens that's the majority of animals that are killed in our food system. That's 90% of all farmed animals are just chickens raised for meat. You take that off your plate, you're affecting a massive part of the system in a positive way, and it should be commended. It should definitely be commended. I think that the food options as well, the alternative options are still improving on the cheese and the milk side of things and the eggs. So that makes it, you have to be more committed to make those. They're harder transitions to make. All of the options are great. Like I know how to navigate them, but I'm the CEO of a vegan organization. So I get the samples like delivered to my door and I know, and I go to all the veg fests around the country. I'm very well versed, but I don't expect everyone to be like that. And I think it's a great normal space to transition to that has valuable impact for animals.
I agree. That was very well said. Thank you. And I'm glad you brought in the vegetables. There are so many more today than there were pre-COVID even. And I'm excited that you're going to be a part of the Georgia Veg Fest coming up. And you're going to have a booth as well as be a speaker on Saturday. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you'll be speaking about.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking about my new book, which is called Transfarmation, The Movement to Free Us from Factory Farming. And we'll be selling the book for a donation at the booth, and I hope everyone will come. The book is really about, I went into the field to find compelling stories about people and beings, so animals, that are affected by factory farming. I tell stories not of them as victims, but as beings who are finding their way out of it. And this gives us a roadmap for how we can end factory farming. They are slaughterhouse workers, farmers, and even animals who have run away or been rescued from factory farms. And it's in three sections. The first one is about farmers who are transitioning out of factory farming into alternative specialty crops through my program called Transfarmation. And it's into hemp, mushrooms, microgreens. They're transitioning and retrofitting their old chicken barns and hog barns into these specialty crop production farms. The second section is about animals who have escaped factory farms or been rescued. One chapter is about a chicken I rescued named Henrietta, and I'll be speaking a lot about her. And then the third is about communities impacted by factory farming. So that includes slaughterhouse workers, refugees, and in North Carolina, there's hog farms surrounding historically communities of color that have been affected in terms of health and it's really environmental racism, where if you set up these factory farms like in a wealthy neighborhood in the capital, it would not happen, but you're setting it up in a lower income rural area and they are having literally pig poop on their porch because it's being sprayed across the street from them and they have no power to change it. But they are finding a way out. They've sued Smithfield. They are finding a way to fight. So it's a story that's supposed to inspire us. If these beings, if these people can fight factory farming, if they can find a way out and it's right in their backyard, so can we. We can be part of it too. And it creates a roadmap for us. And I'm going to talk about that roadmap. I'm going to tell, it's going to be a really hopefully engaging storytelling where I'm going to tell the stories of 3 different individuals. And hopefully people will come out inspired and ready to join the fight.
Well, I want people to know that um, you're going to be there Saturday. You're going to be speaking 2 p.m. Eastern, and anyone can join us. If you're in the area, we invite you to join us because one of the things that we realize is that when you don't know that there are so many other people who are supporting these efforts, you don't know. And we want you to be a part of the energy that people experience when they're coming to this particular VegFest event. Atlanta really has a large number of vegans. We don't typically see them coming together. And if it's only at a VegFest or a vegan event, the numbers may not be as large as they could be. So we're looking at making the Georgia Veg Fest one of the biggest Veg Fest events in the country. And we'd love for you to be there to join us and hear more about transformation and the movement that is going to free us from factory farming. We have to make this move. And, it's like Leah said, even one bite contributes to the forward progress that we could have in this movement. And so I want to invite everyone to join us to be a part of not just the conversation, but be a part of the overall conversation because each day of the Veg Fest, we're also going to have panel discussions. And the panel discussion that will be had on day one is going to be different than on day two. So be there to experience what we're going to be bringing. Now, Leah, I know that being in this space has been really impactful for your life. Tell us a little bit because, relationship is a big thing. We talked about it. There are so across cultures, we use food as a relationship binder, so to speak. And, family events, whether they be homegoings, births, weddings, food is involved. What have you seen? Share with us, if you don't mind, what's happened in your family as a result of what you've experienced and what you've done in your lifetime.
Yeah, yeah, at a very personal level, it can be very challenging. You kind of get obsessed with the brother-in-law or obsessed with the sister or whoever, aunt who's not listening to you. It can get really under your skin in a way that if they were a stranger, you'd be like moving on to the next person. And somehow our family is the ones that get under our skin. So I've had my fair share of frustrations like anyone else, but I can say, uh, with confidence, what works is that nudge, don't judge, is approach. And people will come in their own time if you provide both the opening for them to ask you questions and be accepted as they are, where they are in the journey, and if you make delicious food. So coming, going to your family events and bringing amazing, not the vegan food you try out on your vegan friends, like not the, first time you make tofu scramble. Like that's a challenge, but something really incredibly delicious. An example, for example, my husband and I hosted, he works at Emory University and hosted he's doing a course over 2 weeks and hosted all the professors, none of which are vegan. We had Ethiopian food as we hosted Ethiopian food. Everybody loved it. There was no mention of it being vegan. It was delicious, naturally vegan. We chose, a wonderful menu of injera and lentils and all kinds of delicious foods. That's really easy entry level stuff that invites people, and they want to know the restaurant and they want to know where this is from and what it's made of. We included one like impossible, item just for like novelty, and everybody was curious. Everybody liked it and was interested. So, I think people come in their own time. My parents were very resistant to the diet change until my dad had a heart attack in 2018, and he's well now.
Good,
Um,
good.
and he was somebody who's not overweight. He does exercise every week, and I took him to his first cardiology appointment, and the doctor looked at him and said, "You need to eat a plant-based diet." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, you had to say that in front of her. She's been telling me that for years." And he said the weeks before he had had meatball sub upon meatball sub. And since then, I would say they're reducitarians. They eat a little bit of fish. They eat almost no dairy and no eggs, and they have really come a long way. And since their journey has been around health, but once they got over the kind of health side of it, they were more open to discussing the animal side. So some people have to come in through a different door, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Whatever gets them through the door is the reason, is fine, I think. And then keeping them there, I think animals often is like the nail in the coffin. It just, when they're able to be open to this diet change, when they get over that initial diet change, then they can admit, yes, this is incredibly cruel. It is systemically cruel. It is a moral atrocity. And they can say that once they've entered the door. Before entering that door, that's hard to say if you're not committed to making the change. So you get people through the door however you can, nudge, don't judge, and bring delicious food.
I love that. Three great steps there. Love it, love it. So, Leah, as we're wrapping up, what would you like to tell our audience and include making a special invitation for everyone to join you?
Yeah, I highly recommend you come to the Georgia Veg Fest. It's not just for people who are, activists or vegans or even vegetarians. It's if you're curious and you want to see what's out there, this is your place to do it. It's also a great place to buy gifts. I often buy Christmas gifts and like future presents there. There's t-shirts and candles and earrings and usually there's vendors from all walks of life that it's a great spot to just support a very ethical position in the world and enjoy delicious food. I think Georgia I'm a little biased, but I think it's the best one. It's got a Southern flavor. There's always like the Southern flavor at the Georgia Veg Fest, which you can't find at the Boston Veg Fest. I don't know, Velan, if you want to talk about some of the vendors that are going to be there, but I find it to be so great. And I love the programming too. So once you've gotten your belly full and your gifts, you can go get educated about different things from being an activist to nutrition to cooking tips. Usually there's lots of options, and you will guarantee walk away with a full belly and a thoughtful mind afterwards.
Love that. And you said it so very well. There are so many types of vendors that are going to be there, and there's things for the kids, there's music. So come out, bring your curiosity and come.
Yeah.
Bring your interest and come. Bring your friends and come. We'd love to have you there and to hear your comments. There's going to be places where you can go and share your feedback about what you've experienced there. And on the website, there's a way for you to submit your comments. So we've got everything for you at the Georgia Veg Fest. And one of the things that, of course, I'm most passionate about is those who are bringing the education, the educators who come to educate and share and provide us with the knowledge to move forward in this journey in a stronger, healthier way. Nudge, don't judge. It's one big thing we got out of today. Thank you, Leah.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh, so anything you'd like to say in wrapping up today?
Well, I always encourage people to go to our website, mercyforanimals.org. There is amazing merch. I love our t-shirts, our mugs. We even have like garden clogs and all kinds of things that I encourage you to look at and sign up to be part of our action team who are called upon to write emails and phone calls to legislators and to corporations. We need all the help we can get. So go to mercyforanimals.org, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever you have your social media, we will be. So find us there.
Beautiful. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to this special broadcast of the Veganpreneur Revolution podcast. We are so excited to be partnering with the Georgia VegFest in order to bring this to everyone. Our goal is to amplify the voices of plant-based vegan entrepreneurs, organizations, and activists who are in this conversation and helping to make the world a better place. So thank you for joining us today. I'm Vegan Hawkins. I'm your host with my guest today, Leah Garcés, CEO of Mercy for Animals, and we'll see you at the Georgia VegFest. Bye for now.
See you there.